Hello, I'm John, and today I'm going to be doing something a little different. Couldn't tell, I actually have a face cam this time. Or, I'm not doing a game, either. Because I've been wanting to do this for a little while now, since this is one of those things that everyone just gets up in arms at, and it irritates me a little bit when people get up in arms at it. Either when they're heavily for it or heavily against it. Mainly just for the fact that, the first thing is going to be that, but I'm just going to explain some random stuff that has to kind of do with it. Basically, I'm talking about gender and everything that, in my opinion, goes along with gender and sort of just all those little intricacies that people have made nowadays because, well, they feel like they can. Sorry, it's laggy. It's a video camera, and that might not sync up because it's weird. Anyway, so kind of one of the first things that I want to talk about a little bit is the whole kind of craze that happened a while ago, and I think is still fairly easily prevalent nowadays, where people think there's an infinite number of genders. That is a lie. Complete and utter stupidity. There are really only two. Three if you want to count those who, well, simply put, can't have children anymore because of one reason or another. Because, in all honesty, gender only does that one thing. And it is, what part are you in the grand scheme of things? Are you going to provide the seed, or are you going to be the carrier? Are you a man or woman? Are you, like, where gender is really nothing more than where you fit in. Not really in the grand scheme of things, but just in the whole cycle of reproduction. Are you basically able to do one thing and then check out forever, or do you have to get stuck with the child? That sounds really bad because, in all honesty, it is kind of a true statement. Because that, unfortunately, does happen a lot. But, it is kind of one of the few things that irritates me, though, that people associate so many things with something that's really not that terribly important. It's just through all these, whole tradition things and everything that people have started associating all these things. Which has thus nowadays made people go, okay, I feel more like a man, so I'm going to make sure that I can't have a child anymore. And so I'm going to go look like a man. Or, I feel like a woman on the inside. I have a penis, so let's go hack off my penis and go look like a woman. Yes, I'm okay with, transgender people becoming transgender and whatnot. That's not my issue. My issue is, people both getting up in arms, the fact that those people want to, they have their own choice. They if they want to do it, they can do it. But if they're not making the choice properly, aka if they aren't thinking about the whole fact that, well, now the only way I can have kids is either if I adopt or if my spouse does something with their sexual organs, unless they also don't have sexual organs, in which case then, yeah, really only adopting is going to be an option. Since, with abortion, with, all of these big hot button topics that everyone is just so much for or against. Technically speaking, I'm kind of for them, but at the same time, I just want people to know there are always consequences to actions. It's just you need to balance the positive with the negative. And it's just people thinking, oh, this is my only option. There's many options. There's always more than two options in this world. Even with clothing, with lots of other things, there's many options all the time. And sometimes it doesn't really seem that way, but that's because you aren't looking hard enough, unfortunately. And yeah, since I've known some people who have decided to kind of call themselves one gender or another. That does kind of irritate me a little bit, since, I mean, it also does irritate me a little bit that neither of the two people that I know actually go by their real name, which, that just plainly irritates me a little bit. Like, your parents specifically picked out a name just for you. Yes, sometimes it's kind of idiotic. Like, I know someone who's named Egypt, and I've known people named, Innocence and whatnot, actual words or countries or whatnot. And I really don't understand why a parent would want to do that. But, as I say, my name is John. John is a nice, normal name. I don't have any plans to ever change my name. Sure, it's one of the most common names in the world, but do I really mind? No, because I'm a unique individual, even if I don't have a unique name. My parents gave me that name because it has significance, and I appreciate that. I'm not going to go and try to call myself something else or legally get my name changed or anything like that. By the way, I do go off on tangent. Anyway, we're going to get back. Since I kind of want to explain why, so I kind of want to just kind of get into some of these stereotypes that have kind of come up with gender and whatnot, since that's kind of another issue, is people, like, stereotyping, not for the fact that they're stereotyping, but because of the fact that they think it's either completely true or completely false. More times than not, at some point in time, it was true, it's an average, but there's many things that break rules. Look at the English language. Over half of the rules in it are broken by at least half of the words in it. Like, more times than not, you're going to find a word that breaks a rule that it's supposed to follow than you are to find a rule that has words that actually follow it. English is not my strong suit, even though it's my first language. Anyway, since one of the biggest stereotypes that I kind of always find a bit of an issue with, not for the fact that it's not true to some degree, but just for the fact that many people try to either prove it wrong or prove it right, is kind of men are stronger than women. And yes, I am going to say, yes, that is scientifically true, since that is one of the big things, is I will use my prior knowledge and my prior scientific knowledge to back up a lot of these kinds of things that I'm going to say here. Because, simply put, people don't ever look at the actual scientific facts a lot of the time. They just look at random bullshit and emotions and then they just try to back up their arguments with emotions or random crappy statistics or, no one really looks at actual scientific stuff, like, evolution, for instance, since that's where I'm going to kind of back this up. Back in the olden times of caveman era, that's a lot more than olden times, but whatever, bear in mind. Anyway, basically one of the big things about it was, women have to carry the child. That's just a simple fact. Women have to carry the child. So that makes men a lot more expendable. Thus, men were given a lot more strength because of genetics and whatnot and evolution. Because all they had to do was come in, do their business, then leave, and make sure that the child stays protected. That's also, though, the reason why, as much as men are really powerful, women can really easily kind of kick the ass of a lot of guys. I definitely don't go to the stereotype. I am weak as hell. Then again, that I'm not the most fit person by any standard. Anyway, since evolution has kind of gifted women with more lithe forms, women are going to tend to be faster than men, just because of the simple fact of aerodynamics. Since men tend to have broader shoulders, larger frames, big, bulky muscles, well, women tend to be, thinner. Again, I'm saying tend to, because averages and whatnot. Yes, I am kind of a broad man, but that's not because of muscle by any standard. That's because of a little bit of blubber, as I like to call it. So, basically, because of aerodynamics and whatnot, women, along with, children who tend to be smaller in general, can more easily get away from the predator, as the men of the tribe would stand up against said predator and, well, kill it. And potentially die in the process, because, well, simply put, predators back then ranged from wolves to frickin' saber-toothed tigers to frickin' cave bears, that standing on all fours, their nose would be 6 feet off the ground. So these things are fucking massive and would pretty easily kill any man that I know. Unless, of course, that person had a rocket launcher. But it's kind of hard to get a rocket launcher nowadays. Anyway, so, that is one of the biggest stereotypes, it's not really much of a big stereotype anymore, I guess. Since there's a lot of others, multitasking, which is kind of proven false, because, well, your brain can only really comprehend one thing at a time when I'm using the camera to fix my hair. Yes, I care about my hair. I am a man, but I care about my hair. Not as that terribly much, but I do care about it a little bit, mainly just for the sheer fact that I don't want it in my eyes. Because even though I have glasses, they don't protect from my eyes, like my hair from my eyes. And another kind of, your brain just can't comprehend that because it only remembers and records a limited amount of stuff. And it can't keep track of every little thing that goes on. Just like my camera can't keep track of my hands constantly moving, and they just kind of look like blurs. That's basically what happens in your brain when you are trying to multitask. It's like, do I focus on this? Do I focus on this? Do I focus on one of these 8,000 things that this person is trying to make me do? Fuck it. I'll give each one half a second of thought. Though, kind of remembering Mythbusters, women were a little bit better, just because of simple evolution and sort of, evolutionary training, spatial memory. I think that might be a bit of a thing. I'm not sure. I know a lot of people tend to have some sort of, a little bit of instincts here and there, some people are really good at hunting, others really good at this, really good at that. I'm really good at remembering random, useless, pointless facts that will only really help me later in life, and not really at all right now. I can't remember birthdays except for my own. That's gotten screwed more than once, but anyway. It's simply for the fact that even, also, I guess, because of tradition, mainly. Because that's kind of where a lot of these unfortunate things, women are less than men and whatnot kind of things kind of started to occur, is because, simply put, it just started getting passed down from caveman eras to women were in the center of the tribe. They took care of the children. Men went out to hunt. And because men were a lot less important and could more easily be, it's a lot easier for them to die. That's to my knowledge, since I've never actually really gone hunting, I think there's certain laws and whatnot against actually killing female deers. Or I don't know what I'm talking about there. I just know from some random hunting games that I've played on my phone and whatnot that you get docked for killing females because, simply put, they're the ones that create the children. Men, that is important because, again, they do one thing and then they can leave. I just keep going back to that. I don't know why. Though, women and men are, at least in my opinion, perfectly equal. And it really, since, just like how in my opinion, everyone is equivalent. And yeah, I guess the better word would be equivalent, because anyway, because unlike, you know, uh, like, everyone isn't equal. That's one of the biggest things that kind of does hurt me a little bit, is everyone isn't equal. Because, I'm better at science than your average person. Some people are much better at art. Like, I can't draw a person with a pile of crap, and other people can both draw and paint. I can't do painting with a pile of shit. But that's just kind of one of the biggest things, is, in certain areas people excel, in certain areas people are lacking. That's the reason why no one is equal, because no one is the exact same in everything. Yes, you will find people who are similarly as good in certain areas, but that's just for the simple fact that, well, with a limited number of skills, some people are going to be just as good as others. But you're always going to be able to find something that you're better at than other people. Even if it is something as simple or stupid as, well, alternating eyebrows, or rolling a tongue, or, all of these weird little characteristics that make each of us an individual. Since that's kind of the same thing with men and women, is not equal, just equivalent. And in my opinion, being equivalent is much better than being equal. Because I'd much rather have someone who is different than me than have someone who's an exact clone of me. Because frankly, I don't think I'd be able to stand an exact clone of me. I'm kind of... I don't know, I don't think I'd be able to handle that very well. Some people, I'm sure, would. Those are narcissists. And narcissists are not that great by any standard. Though, since that's kind of one of the biggest points I'm trying to get at with the whole equivalent thing is, equivalence is better than being equal. Because, yes, some terms of equal are being treated as equal. And yes, that is a point where equal is better, because equivalent can be horrible in that situation. Like, people should be treated as equals, but people are equivalents. My brain is just starting to go a bit. But, I mean, this is one of the biggest things that I actually do legitimately have a bit of an issue with, since there are a lot of topics that, for one reason or another, I just don't really care, Since people have the choice, people have the options. Since we're human beings, we can do what we want, we can say what we want, like right now, I'm doing this. I have no idea why I'm doing this, except for the fact that I had kind of an urge to do this, and only a half-assed plan to do this, aka the first chunk, which I didn't even do completely correctly. But yeah, it's just like, I don't know. I mean, people all have the choice to do what they want. It's just, in my opinion, that's what they do. Like, I kind of hit this a little tiny bit, but abortion. Tons of people are against abortion. Tons of people are for abortion. I just want people to know that there's always, at least 3 options. If a pregnant woman doesn't want their child, there's 3 options. They can either have the child and keep it, they can have an abortion, or they can put the child up for adoption. Simply put. And I've gone very far off of gender, but kind of going back to gender, since my mind just went off on a massive tangent of, everyone's equivalent and everyone has the capability of making their own choices. And I'm just going to hop back to that quickly, actually, since it is one of the biggest issues, and I've already hit on this, I think, but if people don't know their choices and don't know the consequences, that's when it actually starts to bother me. Not whether or not they do it or whatever, it's just, when they don't know the consequences, both good and bad. When they don't weigh them and are like, okay, this is the best situation, this is the best outcome for my situation, this is the best choice that I have. Instead of, eeny, meeny, miny, moe, that one. That is atrocious. Even though I have done that sometimes, but that's mainly just with things, video games and deciding which candy to have and whatnot. And though, kind of getting back to the gender things a little bit, since kind of rounding this off, I think I'm going to end soon, but just kind of rounding this off, gender only means one thing, and I think to my knowledge, I already did hit on this a little bit, or a fair bit, but it's just what you do in the reproductive. I can wear dresses if I wanted. I won't because I don't even feel comfortable in shorts. But, men can wear what they want. The women can wear what they want. People can wear what they want. They can say what they want. They can act how they want. All of this stuff that people associate with gender shouldn't be associated with gender, but it just has been because of tradition and, in the 1800s, 1700s, 1600s, all the going back and then dragging it all forwards has just, done that. I'm not even sure exactly where the dress kind of started, but I wouldn't be completely surprised if it was to make birthing a little bit easier so they didn't have to completely remove the women's clothing. But, that is kind of one of the biggest things is, people associate clothing, people associate shoes, people associate attitudes, people associate all of these things with gender. And that's one of the biggest issues that I kind of have a little bit with, transgender is people don't realize you can still be a man, you can still be able to have kids, and yet you can act how the hell you want. If you want to act like a woman, if you want to wear dresses, if you want to do all this stuff, go ahead. If you would much rather look like a woman without being able to have kids, go ahead. It's your decision, in all honesty. It's just kind of one of those things. It's your decision. It just comes down to it's the individual person's decision to do whatever they want. I just, always hope that they realize that, removal from the gene pool. Yes, I don't really care one way or another, but just realizing that fact that they are removing themselves from the gene pool that people don't always realize fully, I think. Or, people who are, gay or bi or asexual, I guess that's a thing. If they want to have a same-sex partner, just, they can do that. I just, if they still think they can have it, it's just, removing them from the gene pool. If they want to remove themselves from the gene pool because they found true love in the form of the same sex, I'm perfectly fine with that. I don't know where my brain just went, but I should probably end it here before I go on more tangents and piss off more people. Yeah. If you would like to see more of this kind of stuff where I just kind of really talk and rant about one random topic or another, please tell me your opinions on this kind of stuff, gender equality, yada blah blah, stereotypes and whatnot. Because I would actually like to hear your opinions on this, since, this is a sort of discussion that has been had throughout centuries and centuries, more or less. Since, I don't know where I'm going with that, but since I need to end this instead of going off on another freaking couple-minute tangent, talking about freaking Spartans and whatnot. Anyway, so, I hope you enjoyed this. Tell me if you want me to talk more about other random topics, since I can't say, more of this, more of something else, but if you want me to do more games, I can obviously do more games. And tell me what you think about this, And without further ado, goodbye.